Hi, this is Ellie again with Sawdust and Stitches, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. In addition to sewing, quilting, and embroidery, bag making, we also do woodworking. So we do woodworking, laser engraving, CNC work, and turning. So today we're going to make this stiletto seam ripper. It is turned on the lathe. I'll walk you through how I did that. And I hope you enjoy it. And as always, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. We appreciate the support. Thank you so much. Let's get going. So today we're going to be making a seam ripper stiletto combination. I did get this kit from Penn State. There's other places you could get them. That's just where I got it. So in the kit, there is a tube that goes in your wood. I believe this is zebra wood, and that's the wood I'm going to use today to turn it. And then these are the pieces that you would use to assemble it. It's your seam ripper and your stiletto at the end. So the first step we're going to do is we need to cut our piece of wood. And what I do is I just take the tube and then I'll draw a line and run it through the jigsaw and just cut it off. And then we're gonna have to drill the holes, insert the tube, and then we can turn it. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that to the right size, and I'll meet you at the lathe. Okay, we're back here at the lathe. I have my holding chuck over here with my wood in it that's cut to the right length, and I've got my drill bit that is the right size for the kit installed here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use this as a drill press. If you have a drill press or you don't have all these tools, you can just use a drill. There's all kinds of centering guides and things you can buy that can be helpful, but the goal is to drill a hole down the center of the tube, or I mean the center of the blank, so that we can insert the tube. And we just take it slow, a little bit at a time. Stop. We're gonna roll our drill back in a little bit, slide it up and put it in that hole, and we're just going to keep doing that until we get all the way through the blank. So we did get the hole in the tube, and you need to rough your tube up in order for the glue to really adhere to that. So I just take a piece of sandpaper, one of these little strips, and I just kind of rough it up good all the way down the tube. Some of the tubes come and it looks like they're pre-roughed, but I do this anyway because I don't always trust that. So then I'm going to use my handy dandy little tube holder, and I'm going to put that tube on there. I'm going to take my blank, I'm going to sit it on someplace flat and leave it there. And then I'm going to put some CA glue starting at the top of the tube. You don't want to use too much. There's kind of a sweet spot, but you do want the whole tube covered. However, when you put it in, it is going to push the glue down, so I usually don't go farther than about 2/3 or half with my glue because it will seep up and out. and you don't want the glue mess. I'm like a kindergartner with glue anyway. All right, so I'm gonna take my tube and I'm gonna very quickly put that in and wiggle this around a little bit. All right, so our tube is in. You can see it flush with the bottom. And we're gonna let that sit for a few minutes. I'm gonna spray some activator for the glue so that it dries well, but you wanna let it sit for about 10 minutes so that glue really has time to dry. And that way, when you're turning it, it doesn't come apart from the wood. So I have my activator. It's just a quick spray, kind of at both ends. And then I'm just gonna leave it for about 10 minutes. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna trim the ends. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, we're back at the lathe. Got our glue set on our tube. Our tube's inserted. I put it back in the chuck, and I'm gonna use what's called an end cutter, or an end, I don't know, an end evener works for me. Anyway, this is gonna go in my drill chuck. And what this does is it's gonna trim that end of the blank that I have to where it's flush, so that when you turn it out, those edges are square and they're completely flat. So you do it similar to the same way as you do the drilling. And what you're watching for is you don't want to trim that tube. So you don't want to see the brass from the tube coming up, and you're just going to watch it. Take it a little bit at a time and take that edge off. I do stop frequently to kind of just check and see where I'm at, because I can see that tube in there, and then it gives me an idea of how much farther I need to go. So I'm really actually about a 1/16 of an inch away. Still watching to make sure I don't see any brass. Just taking a little tiny bit off at a time. Now I'm going to stop and check it again. And it's just there. It's probably a millimeter away from the edge, maybe less. So almost there. That should be just about right, but we're going to check. All the way around, and we actually have just a tiny bit more. This is a slower process. The best advice I could say is take your time and go slow, because you don't want to cut into that tube. That's going to affect how your kit fits together. I think we're good. Yep, we are good. It's right to the edge of that brass. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and set up the lathe for actually turning. We've done the prep work for our project, so we'll get to turning. All right, we have our blank ready to go. Ends are flat so that when we turn it, they'll be flat. Tube's in. Got the lathe set up to turn. Now every kit has bushings. These are the bushings for this kit. And what they are is, if you put them in, it gives you the guideline to where you need to turn that, or how much material to turn away. When you're done, you want that bushing and the blank even. So if you get a kit you want to make sure you always get the bushings to go with it so that you have the right bushings. So I loaded my blank in. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down to really put some tension on that. And then I'm going to lock that back in place so that my lathe is all locked in. And I'm going to start turning. This is the best part of it all. The rest of it is just prep work. It's kind of like making a purse. The prep work isn't much fun, but once you get to the turning, it's worth it all. So I have different tools I use. This is a carbide blade. I'm going to do that one, see how it works. Every piece of wood, blank, acrylic, resin, whatever you're using is a little different. So you would use different tools, but for today I'm going to use this and probably this to finish this off. So just go to it. Start slow because you've got corners, and you're just going to start stripping away material. Everybody has their own technique on how to do this. So the way I do mine is not necessarily the way that's going to work for you, but the idea is to get all that extra material stripped away. Corners are off, it'll go smoother. Stopping and looking to see how that's going. It's going well. It's almost rounded. It still has a few corners here and there, but it's going to be a really pretty seam ripper stiletto. and take a look. So you can see all of the corners are off of it and it's starting to take shape. This is where you add your personality to it. You can design this however you want. Chunky, skinny, as long as you stay at that bushing height, you can do whatever you want with it. But I think it's going to be a beautiful little seam ripper stiletto. All right, let's keep going. To kind of get that corner so that it's even with that bushing, because that's the goal, is that those two ends need to be completely flush. When you run your fingers over it, you don't want to feel that bushing. You don't want to feel the difference between them. And we're going to do the same over here, kind of just get it down to that bushing level. Sometimes I have an idea in my head of how I want it to look, and other times I don't. I also, a lot of times when I've taught people how to do this, the biggest thing that people tend to do is they tend to make it fatter than they think it's going to be. So I guess if you feel like it's the right thickness, then maybe go a little bit narrower, unless you really do want it thick. I'm putting a divot in between the two ends because when you use a seam ripper or stiletto, it gives you a little bit something to grip with. Just thinking about the way the product is going to be used in the end. But then again, there is no right or wrong. However you want it to look when you turn your own is however you want it to look. that's just about the way I want it to look. Got a few edges I can clean up there, but it's looking great. All right, next step is sanding. All right, so here's our blank, and we are down to final assembly. So in the kit, you have 2 of these springs. These are extremely fragile, just letting you know. I know that from experience because I've broke a couple. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take those and you're gonna put them in the end of the tube. And it is a little fiddly. You kind of have to figure it out and go slow because you don't want to bend them. But it goes in the tube. And once I get it in about that far, I'll take the end, this is the stiletto, I'll put it in there and I'll kind of wrap it around it and push it in because they bend and you don't want them to bend. So it just helps it go in. And like I said, they can be fiddly, so just take your time, go slow. You don't want them to bend. And you want them in there snug. So if it's a little bit trickier to get it in, that's not a bad thing because that's what holds that stiletto and seam ripper in. So you definitely want it in there solid. Almost there. So you can see the end of that still needs to go in a little way. So we're just going to keep working with it. Takes a little bit of a push to get it in there. But like I said, you want that in there snug. There we go. We almost got it. Some of it is just the awkwardness of doing this on camera. If I were doing it in an angle right in front of me, it'd be better. Okay, so there we have it. It's in. Comes out, turns around, goes in. So that's how that goes in. We're just going to repeat that with the other one. So I just kind of roll it in my fingers and get it started. Oh, that one's going in a lot easier. Just take your time and be careful so those springs don't bend. Don't want them to bend, otherwise you can't finish it. Almost there. Like I said, some of this is just the awkwardness of doing this on a camera. If it were like right in front of me, I wouldn't have as much of a hard time getting this in. So I'm gonna turn that one around and put it in that way. There we go. All right. So there we have it. And sometimes you need to work. They don't always like to go in at the same time. All right. So there we have it. We have the seam ripper on one end, stiletto on the other. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this. I am not a professional turner, but I love to do it. So hopefully you got a little bit of information or entertainment out of this. If you liked what you saw, if you want to subscribe, click that like button. That's always helpful. Thank you.